Hello and welcome. This is Kelly Woods. I'm in Anacortes, Washington, and I'm so delighted to be interviewing someone that I've known for quite a few years. Um, she's located in Lebanon, and currently there's some conflict going on there. There has been for quite some time, actually. But the reason that I wanted to interview Bea is because I've been looking for models of resilience. I love to observe people who are thriving despite difficult challenges and break it down in my mind to find out what they're doing that's helping them, how they're able to overcome difficulties in their life, whether it's professional or personal. And so I know that you're going to really enjoy our conversation here today. And Bea, it's so good to see you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Can you just let viewers know a little bit about yourself, maybe some of your background in hypnosis when you started and what
Okay, funny enough, my background was in human resources until 2019. I had a very successful corporate career. And in 2015, I started learning NLP and then hypnotherapy and then all the rest of the mental health blocks. So it was a gradual shift. So in 2019, I decided that I don't want the corporate anymore. It was on my 50th birthday. So I decided that, okay, now is the time to do a total shift and to be totally dedicated to mental health. And 2 months after I left my corporate career and opened my clinic, we started having the revolution in my country. And since then, it has been a roller coaster of events.
5 years of turmoil, chaos,
Yeah.
yes. And this was the same time that you made that epic decision. Isn't it
Yeah.
interesting how certain times in our life can be pivotal for us? It can be from an experience that we have, but it could be also just a timeline. You mentioned your 50th birthday.
Yeah.
And obviously, you were probably thinking of making a change before that, but for some reason, that activated that desire in you.
Well, actually, it's a rather funny story because since I was 8 years old, the dream was to work in mental health, and then they got me married at 17. I got myself divorced at 22, and back then it was the only option was to be a psychologist. But for me, it was too late because I was already studying French literature and I was on my third year. So I said, okay, I'm not gonna work. I'm a princess, and it was totally survival mode. That just to show everyone that no one can break me. I was not thinking of a career at that time. So I had multiple jobs until I joined a multinational and started working in human resources. And then I started studying everything else related to human resources and quality and what have you. But I was always fascinated by mental health. In 2008, I studied psychology, but after visiting like every single psychologist in my country for severe anxiety and depression, the whole 9 yards, with medications and what have you, and sadly, it did not work until I got introduced to NLP in 2015. And that was when, on the first day, I threw out all the medications. And this is where I became Coach B because the trainer was telling me, oh my God, you buzzed like a bee. Although I came into the class with a bag of medication and I was zoning out most of the time, but I was in total fascination. Just like you said that when we discuss whatever worked with everyone else and how we can apply it in our own life, what I loved about NLP is that it's totally actionable intelligence. So it's not theory and what have you. So it made perfect sense in my head. And this is where I decided that no, the dream is not dead. So it has to go on. And
That's
then I said, okay, I need to learn a lot to be able to feel confident doing this, especially when you come with a background where you were raised to believe that I'm not good enough, I don't deserve, blah, 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 blah. And having in the back of my head that I'm not sure that mental health works because I had a very long experience of failures in therapy. But nevertheless, I decided that I will give it my best shot. So I was working and paying for my certificates at the same time. So I was taking clients part time and studying more and more and more and more. So in 2019, I said, okay, it's my 50th birthday. I think I did enough of corporate. So I have enough clients. I can survive with my client, with my clinic, and then we will see what happens. And then, and then everything happened.
Everything happened. I love your
Yeah.
story. And, you know, it's been posited that the subconscious mind is like that of a bright 8-year-old. And by 8 years old, you knew what your life passion was. And
Because I had a sexual abuse incident and I did not want anyone else to go through this because I did not have any support. People who were supposed to protect me were the one who were judging me and bullying me. So in my head that there must be something wrong in all of this. And I did not have proper support. And even when I went to therapists, all what they did is that they anchored me, telling me, poor you, everyone ruined your life. So you're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim. So everyone I visited enforced the victim thing in my head. So the badge of honor for me was I'm the victim of my mom and the family and whatever happened.
we know what a trap that is when we're talking
Yeah.
about personal identities and when they come from external sources.
It's very comfortable to be in your comfort zone being the victim and you get the compassion of the sympathy of everyone around you. And you get even more victimized because it's getting even more attention.
So what caused you to break out of that kind of an identity trap?
Well, actually, in 2015, I met someone who studied NLP and we were having a dinner in the process of potential dating. So he said, yeah, you're so happy being the victim. So in my head, it was like, what? I'm a survivor. I'm not a victim. I survived everything I went through. He said, come on. Don't be stupid. You're a victim. So I just Googled to see what he's talking about. What's this NLP he's talking about? And luckily enough, there was a trainer coming from the state in the next 2 days. So I enrolled just to be able to answer the guy. And it was the beginning of the whole change. So when it's the right time, things happen.
Yes, when it's the right time, when the student is ready.
Yeah,
those teachers.
exactly.
And,
Exactly.
you know, that's interesting because I had had a blind date 22 years ago with someone. And while I didn't fall for him, I fell for what he was talking about. He was
Exactly. It did not work out with the guy.
right. Hey, we have
But for me, it was an eye opener like, yeah, exactly. I'm being my mom's victim till now because I'm not allowing myself to live my life. Because for me, if I heal, there will be nobody of evidence for whatever she did for me. Because in the FBI, you need to have a dead body to prove there was a crime.
Oh, I love
So
that.
if I'm functioning perfectly, there wouldn't be an evidence of whatever happened to me.
Yeah. Well, that's a true sign of a growth mindset right there. And post-traumatic growth can come at any time in our life. So one of the traits that I see that you possess is that you're a lifelong learner, that you
Yes.
love
Oh, yes.
to learn, right?
Yes.
And that's evident because you've taken lots of trainings. I know that you're actually a trainer of other hypnotherapists, right?
I'm a master trainer in NLP with the American Board. I'm also a trainer of hypnotherapy with Richard Nongard at ICBCH and with the American Board. I also train in past life regression and timeline therapy and everything related to energy and Reiki and spirituality, because for me, they are all interrelated. And the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more fun it is. So, because if you only have a hammer, everything would seem like a nail. While if you have a huge toolbox, you can be very playful with your clients. So I owe it to them to offer them what I did not have.
Yes, and I agree with being playful. My first excellent mentor was Michael Elner, and he used to take a very lighthearted approach when working with even serious topics like chronic pain.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I chose to emulate, and it fit my personality anyway. And I found that it's an effective component of my work with people who are going through heavy challenges. So,
When I learned Fast Phobia Cure with NLP, I discovered how fun it can be to release a phobia. And when I learned that the best way to learn is through fun, and when I was watching Richard Bandler giving his classes. It was like, oh my God, he's the most sarcastic person and his results are amazing. So why do I have to be so serious? And this is what I try to tell my people, that don't take yourself too seriously. People that come to us already have enough problems in their life. They don't need more drama from us.
It's true. And yet that can be a delicate balance. I remember Michael had an acronym, FDD, Fun Deficiency Disorder. And
Yeah, exactly.
but having that nuance of knowing when
Yes.
to bring these frames in with clients. Just yesterday, I worked with a married couple who recently lost their 20-year-old to a drug overdose. And it was just our second session together. But
Mm.
I felt that it was the right time to bring out, you know what? Every good self-respecting hypnotist has
Yes.
one of these. And this was just so that I could teach them more about mind-body responses,
Yeah.
IDM response, because they were both stuck in anxiety. And that anxiety was limiting them from, finding any peace at all, and even
Yeah.
affecting their physical health. So, but when I brought this out, they cracked up. They laughed so hard, even in excess laughter over it. They really needed that opportunity.
Yeah.
And we can make those points for people. So I love watching some shares that people make on Facebook. I'm a good lurker, and you have made some incredible posts on your Facebook page. In one of them, you talk about being the self-described black sheep. How has this frame been helpful for you?
Well, at the beginning, it was crippling because I used to think that since I am one and they are a group, that they are right, I'm wrong. And then I started learning that if you have a unique fingerprint and a unique eye print, why am I expected to be like everyone else? So maybe I'm the black sheep with those, so I should be in a tribe of black sheep like me. If I cannot find it, I create it. And this is what I did. So since I could not fit in with normal people, I'm not into shallow conversation and the Hermes bag and the whatever and the Botox and the fillers and all of this. I'm more into deep conversations. So I always felt like the outcast in my environment. So I created a different environment. It was not that easy. I started with one, and then you start attracting people like you eventually.
Yes, it's true. And because I think that's what everybody is looking for, an opportunity to be authentic, right? And that can come in many forms. There are lots of words that describe that, including being vulnerable. But we can show our strengths, we can show our weaknesses, our flaws. I think the more self-awareness that we have about them, then we can choose whether we want to make any changes or not. Now,
Well, sorry. You know what? I think people are tired from perfect coaches. They need humans. And when they know that if I can do it, I can help them do it. If I'm living in my ivory tower and my life have been perfect, no matter how much I try, I cannot even perceive what they went through. So, and people can sense whatever is fake. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm the guru and the whatever and everything was perfect in my life. Nobody would believe me.
that's
I
right.
would rather be myself, and I want to attract people that are like me, that are looking for a coach who's like me. It will be way more beneficial for me and for them.
And this is a really important point, that we attract a certain type of person, and we do it automatically anyway, but we can even do it with intention, right?
Yes.
By highlighting certain aspects of ourselves. Right now, I'm pretty immersed in the whole topic of grief and loss, and the universe is answering that. I'm working with lots of people who are suffering in
Yeah.
that area. In fact, I've discovered that all along, many of my clients were experiencing some form of loss that was really at underlying some of their symptoms and problems that they were coming with. So your work ethic is incredible. I can't believe the amount of hours that you put into your work. And there's the quote that if you're doing what you love, it'll never seem like you work in
Yes.
life. But it can be very intense to do this work.
It is intense, but you know what? I always worked in international companies that work 24/7. So in airports and ports and companies that have branches in the Middle East and USA. So I'm used to very different time zones. And then when I started the tribe of therapists that are studying with me, my only condition for having anyone, because I interview them before they take my classes, is that they are ready for continuous growth. I don't want someone who would come to take a piece of paper and go. To be able to help them grow, I need to grow as well. I need to lead by example. So I cannot be closing my phone at 5 p.m. saying that it's the end of my working day and expect them to attend every single class that I give as a retake. So year 2 and year 3 and year 4. So I need to lead by example. The place where when you've been through so many traumas in your life, you become rather dissociated. The only time where I'm in total flow state is when I'm learning something new or in my sessions. So, and I'm lucky enough that all my classes are either in the States or in Australia. So they are on the opposite time zone. So I have classes at night and I work during the day.
So
Because
how do you
with all the financial devaluation that have been happening in Lebanon, I need to work a lot to be able to pay for my classes. So it's not either or. I managed to find a rather delicate balance to be able to study everything I need to study and have an acceptable amount of sleep to be able to be functioning almost normally and be able to service my client, because eventually you would lose them. They would go to someone else.
That's true. And that was my next question, is how do you find that balance in your life? I think that a lot of people who have their own practices find that difficult, especially if they're, still raising a family or they have a significant other that they need to give attention to. Or
It's a case by case. It's a one day at a time. Because for example, in May and October, I always have the full month classes at night from 1 a.m. to 1 p.m. as part of my graduation as a master trainer. So during this period, I take a minimum number of clients. And for my graduates who are with me, an open mentorship, I tell them during this month, as part of paying back to the universe, because I'm helping you for free, you're going to help each other. So I would assume that the senior will help the junior. And I need to have this put on the side for October and May. You will take care of each other. My clients are so amazing because when you give from the bottom of your heart, you receive as well. So I would have clients who would cook for me whenever I have a class. So it's very interactive because they know they can reach me at any time. Whoever cannot pay, they can come, because I know what's the situation in Lebanon. So whenever I have a free hour, I would give it for free for someone who cannot pay. So it's one day at a time, whatever floats the boat on that day.
So you've had that makes sense, and I love your flexibility. I think that is key to being successful professionally and personally, because we cannot control those kinds of events. And certainly, especially over the last 5 years, there's been ongoing conflict in Lebanon. And you're located in Beirut, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So have you always been able to use your physical office space there?
Actually, until 2 weeks ago, it was fine because Beirut was rather fine. But the first 2 weeks, it was totally crazy. I was able to use my premises, but people were scared to come. So I had to rent a second clinic in a different location where I would go 2 days per week. So when I set the intention that I need to figure out a way to be able to serve my clients without killing myself financially, because at the end of the day, I will have to be able to pay a second clinic. So I found an amazing clinic where I could go 2 days per week. So I don't have to bear the cost of the whole clinic. So now I have those who could not come and new people from that area. So it's very well. It's going well.
So it's clear listening to you, B, that one of your major strengths is that you're solution focused.
It's typical NLP. This is what we learned, that the strongest part of anything is the part that is the most flexible.
Yes.
You know that dinosaurs disappeared from the face of the earth because they could not adapt with the environmental change. So the more adaptable and the more flexible you are, the more sustainability you have.
So if those dinosaurs had just opened a second office, they would still be around.
Yes.
Is that's fantastic. So I know that you're doing a lot of work with past life regression,
Yes.
and I wanted to ask you, because of course there's this area that I'm interested in learning more and more about, and that's grief and loss. And can you just tell me how you might approach grief work through past life regression?
Okay. I do have a personal experience with this, and I have a lot that I learned during the classes. In 2008, I'm not very much into kids. So in 2008, before I learned NLP, I decided that I'm going to get pregnant and I'm going to go to USA or Canada. So this baby will be mine. So I got pregnant for 3 months. And then for whatever reason, I lost the baby. And I totally forgot about it. And the next day I went to work and life went on. Last year, while I was learning about past life regression, and then I was watching a video about the marriage of the son of King Abdullah in Jordan. He was with his mom. So I started crying and I never knew why. And then while I was doing the past life regression, I remembered that back then when I was pregnant, in my head, I'm going to have a baby boy and I'm going to call him Ryan. And I got all the outfits for baby boys, including the Halloween costume. And I kept them till last year. But I never grieved this loss. So when I learned past life regression, I learned that this soul decided to volunteer for a very small role to teach me something about grief, attachment, detachment, whatever. So instead of being sad and angry at God and whatever, I started asking myself, what can I learn from this present? And I learned about soul groups, and then I understood that this soul decided to be part of my soul group. So I anchored myself with a baby boy that's in my bracelet. So now I know that this soul is with me at all times. So when I teach people about grief and past life regression, I always explain to them that we agreed to, it's like you have a casting for a play. So we agreed to play those roles in each other's life. So I have a role in your life, you have a role in mine. Whoever finishes their role, they are waiting outside. So it's not over. We're going to meet again as a soul. So it's over. It's goodbye for now. I'll be very grateful for the lesson because we signed some kind of agreement and I'm doing something for you, you're doing something for me, and eventually we're going to meet outside. And this soul did not vanish from my life. It's in my aura, it's in my genes, if it's someone in my family. So it's more, we shift toward gratitude and toward what can I learn from their presence in my life to make it useful for me so that this agreement would be optimized. So I learned from them and they learned from me. And also I learned, I think from yeah, Kate in her past life regression class as well, when we were discussing that whenever we are mourning someone, we are stopping them from going wherever they need to go.
Wow.
So when people understand all of this, it shifts their perspective. So it's not like if I stop grieving the person, it's like I forgot about them, so I feel guilty. It's more like I'm releasing them with love. I'm very grateful for every happy moment, and it's until we meet again. And I can connect with them at any moment because on the soul level, we are all interconnected.
Yes. Katie Eastman, in one interview that I did with her, she's my personal grief therapist. She described it as the unending bonds, and that's a
Yeah.
term that's used in the grief world too. I love what you're talking about because sometimes I have had people not resonate with the idea of a contract that's made before this life
Yeah.
because they've taken it on that it's some kind of judgment that they made the decision to bring this suffering into their life in a negative way. So you're reframing this with gratitude and with finding the meaning, finding the value
Yeah.
of it. And of course, that relationship doesn't die just because the person
Absolutely.
can continue on and be cultivated over time too. So your experience about, your child that you lost and how you even anchored that into that piece of jewelry is beautiful. And here you are again, you're modeling how to take what can be a devastating loss to a woman and a man, and you've found helpful thoughts to it while being able to release that experience also. And
And I also share with them my personal experience with my dad. So when I was born, my dad was like 63 years old. So our relationship when he was alive was not that good because my mom was in the middle. But after he passed, now I'm able to connect with him on a totally different level. Funny enough, my cat looks like him. It's freaky how much she looks like him. The blonde and the blue eyes, and the way she looks at me, and the way she does with her tail when she sits and looks at me like he did with his hand. So we can always connect with anyone, just like when you pray or with telepathy and wherever. So if the person is dead, as if in Canada or wherever, so he's not physically with me, but the soul and the spirit are always there. So you can always connect whenever you want to.
absolutely. And, you were talking about not having to be perfect. How, perfectionism is a trap, and no one can
It's boring.
achieve that. Yes, it is. And so our personal stories can be utilized in our professional work, definitely.
Yeah,
But there's also a limit to that. And it has to be in context. So when you're teaching
exactly.
LR,
Exactly.
this story is so profound. And I found that students learn better when they have those kinds of stories to wrap their heads around a concept, a theory that we're teaching. But I also know that there's a risk of oversharing or
Yes.
taking the spotlight away from your client. And I think this is especially true when we're working with people who have recent loss. Because one of the things, and I experienced this myself, is that as soon as we want to share a little bit about that, because that's part of the grieving process, the other party starts to tell their own horrible story of loss. And it can really shut a person down.
Yeah.
So I know that you have the expertise and the experience to know when to share these things. And I think
You
that,
know what? I share more, not only with the grief. For example, when someone comes to me to work on weight management, now I'm very thin, but I used to be 109 kilograms, emotional eating. So they would assume that I can never understand their struggle.
yes,
So when they start talking, I tell them, would you allow me to share one thing with you? I fully relate to what you're going through because I was 109 kilograms. Don't be fooled by what I am now.
yes,
I have been yo-yo dieting for decades, so I fully understand your struggle. So let's hear your story, for example.
perfect.
So it's a case by case thing. And again, it's about using our good judgment to know when to stop, like in everything in life, like in any relationship.
Right. I agree with you. And, I wrote a book on hypnosis for weight loss. And in the beginning chapter, I talk about this because there are a lot of overweight hypnotherapists who don't feel confident in helping people with that topic because they haven't been able to maybe control their own weight successfully. And I reassure them that at any point in your own journey, you can help people. When you have that personal experience of struggling with your weight, that makes you relatable. It helps build that rapport, and you
Yeah.
do understand that struggle, right? The same thing with grief, the same thing with,
And relationships as well. So people would assume that if a coach is divorced, they are not good to give advice on to coach people on relationships. So
yes,
I tell them the only time where you cannot coach people on something is when you are not at peace with it. So either I'm fat, I like my weight, or I'm fat, I'm working on my weight. The problem is when in denial or I cannot manage myself. Here, there's no congruence between what I say and what I do. But
yes,
in all other cases, I enjoy being fat. It's nobody's business. I like my body, so okay.
right. Yeah, and everybody is somewhere on that spectrum.
Hmm?
But it really comes down to that self-awareness and then making
Yep.
that decision about what you're choosing to do going forward. So I saw in one of your posts an interesting quote, and I think you said something that in Arabic, marriage is a golden cage.
Exactly.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Okay. One of the quotes that they use in Arabic is that when they talk about people that they are getting married, it's like they are getting into the golden cage. Just like two birds, lovebirds, they are in a golden cage. So already we are predisposed to believe that we are stuck and the chains and whatever. So how, and even when with all the TV series about the wedding dress and what have you, and about the wedding night being the best day of your life, how would you wake up the next day knowing that the best day of your life is already behind you? I don't think it's going to be fun.
Right.
So people come with expectations and they would assume fireworks, and they are slapped with reality. Or they assume that marriage is a continuity of dating, where in my head, it's a totally different relationship. It's a totally different job description, being the boyfriend versus being the husband, or the mistress versus being the wife. It's a totally different job description. So this is where disappointment comes from. So I do my best and now excuse my French, all the crap in social media about the feminine energy and the receiving. You just sit and you're allowed, you have to receive and you don't need to lift a finger. It's not like this. So now all the girls don't want to do anything. And all the men were raised to believe that, especially in Arab countries, for example, if you have a brother and a sister, the sister would go and do a sandwich for her brother. While if you talk about it energetically, the masculine energy is the one who's supposed to serve. So men are raised to be women, and women are raised to be women now because of the feminine thing. So I really wonder what's going to happen next.
Yeah, we're definitely at an interesting time in human evolution, and I'm enjoying watching the patterns and the trends because they're kind of flip-flopping a lot. I think
Yeah,
a lot of people are lost, and since they use social media for guidance, that becomes even more confusing. Not just
yeah.
in relationship issues, but what is healthy eating, right? And also I think in designing the way that they want to work and live. And this is something when I think of you and how you've had a persistence. When I first met you, and we did some work together, you
Yeah.
you were formulating where you wanted to be. And I think even your story about wanting to be pregnant, you decided that you were going to do that, and you did it, right? Even though,
You know what? Funny enough, when part of the past life regression, there is a part where you do future life regression. So it's not like the future in this life, it's one of the next lives. So I was able to see myself in a home, and there is an amazing guy coming. And it turned out that this is my son. And I was telling myself, this is my man that no one would take away from me. And it showed me how much insecurities I took from my mom regarding relationships. So my son is the man that no one can take away from me, while with a partner, who knows?
yeah. So that was another part of the meaning that you put towards being a mother.
Yeah.
And so I see that you have the skill of really zoning in on the crux of the matter, on the point, on that emotional driver.
Mhm.
And this is important because I think a lot of our clients don't know how to do that. They need instruction on it, they need guidance, they need modeling with it. And we're not just guides, but you know, we're cheerleaders for our clients as they start to put those things together and they're connecting the dots. Then they become more independent of us too, right?
You know what? I tell them I'm like your personal trainer, so I can give you the techniques, global and micro. I will help you while you are practicing, and I will cheer you up at the end, but I cannot do the work for you.
That's right.
So you need to do the work. I will be with you at all times, just like a guide, holding the torch, holding the light for you, but you will have to do the work.
I like that metaphor too. I sometimes describe myself as a Sherpa. I'm helping to carry some of the load up that steep hill, right? And let's enjoy the scenery while we're doing this.
Yeah.
What is it like? And we don't have to get into politics, that's not necessary, but what is it like to be living in a country that's under siege, that's enduring war and these kinds of conflicts?
Okay. It has two things. One of the best, the cherry on top of the cake this year for me was I was taking a class, another class for past life regression because before I gave my class this year. And one of them was asking the trainer that, for example, people who live in Lebanon or Palestine or wherever, why are they suffering like this? So he was explaining that problems between Jews and Christians were there since the Bible times. So any soul that needs to get rid of territorial attachment volunteered to be born in this area, to be reincarnated or born or wherever in this area. So for me, this is their part of their growth, of my growth as well. And what I was telling everyone around me that we are all living in the same area, but everyone is having a totally different challenge from what's happening. Some of us lost their kids, some of us lost their homes. For me, it was the financial concern which helped me expand. So this challenge, you either use it or it's going to use you. And on the other side, I discovered as part of my graduation as a master trainer, I had to be supervising during the train the trainer. And I had two people from the country that is bombarding us. For me, they are students. Me as the trainer, it's not their problem what country I'm coming from. And for them, I could only see someone who's shaking because he has to do his presentation to pass his test. It's not his problem, not my problem. In this class, in this setup, I'm the master trainer. He is becoming a trainer. I have to give it to the best of my abilities. If not, I'm not a good trainer. Although they were hitting like 5 buildings next to me and I was doing my final presentation as well, but it was a choice. Either I would give up on my dream on my finishing line, or I will have to make it happen no matter what. It was not that easy, but it was feasible. And the proof is that I did it.
There is the proof, and by doing so, you asserted your independence, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and
because freedom is not about the land you are living in. Freedom is a mindset, and your mindset, no one can take it away from you.
Absolutely. And freedom, personal freedom is my number one value. So when you know your values and then you live in alignment with them,
yes,
life just seems to work differently, even in the middle of chaos and loss, which are a normal part of life. Now, some people have more than their share of it. And your country now is has the risk of being in a ever-present fight or flight response.
Yep. Since 1975, we have been in civil war.
Yes.
Okay. The best thing I like about my mom is that war started, I was like 5 years old. So we would be in the shelter and people would be dying. And she would tell me, go do your homework because tomorrow, if you're not dead, you have to go to school. So I was not, fear was not there. So I was conditioned and trained that fear should not stop me. It's not in my model of the world.
So that's interesting that even from a parent who was not there.
Yeah, because when you see your parents are scared and they are crying and they are saying, oh my God, we're going to die. Tomorrow we're going to have no food. For my parents, it was always like, we have to figure out something. Giving up is not an option.
Right. So they modeled that for you. And recently I have a Hypnosis for Kids group on Facebook. Research that supported exactly what you're talking about. It is the adult's reaction to whatever experience is that creates the mindset of the child. And
absolutely.
And the reason I shared is I had an inquiry from someone who had a child who had a attachment, a separation anxiety, and an 8-year-old. And they explained that when the child was 2, there was an incident at a daycare that was a pretty severe thing. Didn't happen to this child, but the child was there.
Mm-hmm.
And they had told the child in detail later about this and hoping that that would explain the separation anxiety. And so for me, that was very problematic, but it went along with this research that shows. And sometimes parents do disclose the things that happened to children not in a helpful way. And
Yeah.
it's the parents' attempt to work out their own anxieties, right? So even though you had a problematic parents, you got that lesson in strength and perseverance. I was raised by a Finnish woman, and Finland has, a long history of other countries trying to dominate it.
Uh-huh.
And Finland has a national word called sisu, S-I-S-U. And that is that dogged perseverance. You don't give up. You don't give up your border. You get up in the cold and you go out there and you fight.
Yeah.
And you eat the frozen potatoes and you just do it. And so I was raised with that without it being expressly talked about. That was modeled by my parents. And
So it becomes something built in. So it's not like I'm not in the mood or I am in the mood. It's not a question anymore. You just wake up and do it.
Yes. And then we model that to our clients. And there are
Yeah.
ways that we can do that and we can teach it. But I think, again, that solution focusing on their strengths, on their resources. So besides all of these strengths that you have inside of yourself, even though we know that you're not perfect, neither am I, what are your resources? What practices do you engage with regularly? What you have your cat, I know that you love, and
Okay.
other people in your life. What do you do? Who do you draw on?
Actually, lately it's more like I created my own universe. So I'm surrounded by my graduates, just like your amazing group. So they are with me day in and day out because my clinic is very big. So anyone who doesn't have a clinic yet, they can come and see their clients at my clinic. So this is my circle now. So I'm surrounded by like-minded people. I do a lot of, not a lot, as much as possible, meditations and cleaning energy and all of this.
Okay.
I work out every day. But for the rest, it's mainly everything I learned in NLP. So it's not being at effect and being at cause, not being the victim, because it's only a mindset. You can always find the one person where you are at cause, and this is where you can create change. So if you are at effect and they did it for me, they did it to me, when you're the victim, you cannot create any change. So if I want change, I need to take accountability. So the presupposition of NLP, they are my new Bible, if you can say.
It sounds like you are adept at paying attention in a way that's helpful.
Yeah.
And this is a theme that I use in my work and have trained my own mind to have that mindset. And some people might think it's more of a Pollyanna look, looking at the bright side and the glass half full.
It's not like the bright side. It's like how helpful is it for me to sit? It's okay. One of the things I always remember is the difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion. So if now I sit and cry with the people, how is that helping them or helping me? While if I open my clinic for free for people who cannot pay, I'm helping everyone, including myself.
Yes. Yes.
So I have a valid reason for not being dragged into the negativity. I lost lots of my old friends who would say, yeah, you positive people, as if it's something bad.
Yeah.
So you outgrow sometimes people that you love, but sadly, just like you outgrow your favorite genes, you remember them with gratitude for all the happy memories, and then you grow new friends.
Yes. And again, you find that meaning for the reason those people came in our lives, right?
Yep.
And so having this ability to train our own mind, and this is also what I love about NLP. And it's unfortunate that a lot of trained hypnotherapists don't know NLP. They learn very little of it, maybe a small anchoring technique. But I encourage anyone that I'm mentoring to get more.
It's pure magic.
It's magic because it works on two levels. It gives people, especially when you're teaching them self-directed tools like an anchor collapse, for example, it gives people a tool so they can be self-empowered and they can experience very quick shifts,
Yeah.
feel the relief or, stepping into any kind of state that they want to be in. But over time, through neuroplasticity, it does create not just a different mindset, but a different body set, all of that, because it's impossible.
Because of the mind-body connection as well.
Yes, it's
So
impossible to
I
separate.
tell them that just like you work out your muscles at the gym, you can recondition your brain. The neuroplasticity is amazing. Everything can be changed.
It is.
Maybe I cannot erase their memory, but I can change how they see the memory. So it's a totally different perspective. So it can change their whole life.
It can also step in temporarily to empower us. And I'll give an example. In January of 2021, my 16-year-old grandson died by suicide.
Mhm.
And of course, this was very traumatic. When I was able to go and visit my kids, I was present in the room. And of course, my daughter and my son-in-law were absolutely devastated and they were still in shock. And
Mhm.
I had to be present. I had to be in a
Yeah.
state of control so that I could be available for them, or even doing, just the functions there that need to be taken care of in the house. And so I used NLP to distance that emotional charge for me. And
Yeah.
it worked beautifully. And then on my own terms, when it was convenient for me time-wise and I was alone, then I could step back into that heavy grief and start to process it. But when we as practitioners have that experience of using things, and not just once or twice so that we learn it,
Yeah.
but as a daily habit in our life, some miracles start to happen. And when we're in those kinds of traumatic situations, and I had another one that wasn't as traumatic, but when I was in my office, my physical office, my landlord came in and told me that someone had hit and run my vehicle in the parking lot. And I liked my car. It was a cute little car. So I didn't have any clients at the time. I went out and inspected the damage and called the police, made a report, and then came back into my office in time a few minutes before my client appointment. And I realized that at no time during that whole experience did I get upset. My blood pressure didn't go up. I didn't berate myself for parking in that spot or the other person that had done it. And I knew then that what I'd been practicing for years was an automatic response now. I had actually created that kind of a mindset. So my brain automatically went into what was going to be more helpful to me.
Well, actually, as Melissa Tears always said, you used to have an unresourceful pattern that was repeated. Now you changed the pattern and you are repeating it.
Yes,
I
exactly.
noticed this like 2 years ago, there was a series of earthquakes in Lebanon. So it was like 3 a.m. I was barely finishing work and I was in bed with my cat sleeping right here. And I felt that everything was moving. So I used to have a long history of anxiety. So when I noticed it was an earthquake, the primary reaction was, if I pass now, I will look at God. I would be very happy and I would say to God, I think I did what you sent me to do. It was the most peaceful moment of my life, which is very weird considering that when I was supposed to be peaceful, I was not.
That's interesting. And I know the truth of it because I got a whole body wave of chills when you told that story. So I have a question. Something that I run into in my mentoring of women is, what we might loosely call imposter syndrome. These are intelligent, educated people. They often come from a wide variety of backgrounds, like your background. A lot of people come from IT worlds or some human services. And so they already have a great skill set. And yet they're still doubting themselves and getting into their own heads. And that even prevents them from really being effective in their work. How would you help someone like that?
Well, I used to have this because I was raised by a mom who is super perfectionist. So she always thought that by making me feel always not good enough, she would push me to perform even better. So although on the outside, I was rated one of the best HR directors in the Middle East, deep inside, I always felt that they are so stupid to believe that I'm good. So whenever my boss would come angry, I would say, oh my God, I guess he discovered something bad that I did, and I never did something wrong. I was amazing at my work, but I always had deep inside of me the insecurity and the fear of the little kid who was trained to believe that I'm not good enough. What helped me a lot is, I think you told me about it, the script from Kevin Cole, Seeing Yourself Through the Eyes of Love. And this is where I started to see myself, not through the eyes of my mom, not mine. I started with my cat. So I remembered how my cat looks at me, and although she's very arrogant, she would see me as her whole world. So I must be worth something. And then it started shifting. And then I learned how to change the belief that we have with the white Canva. I think it's your script as well. So when you change the belief that I'm not good enough, I don't deserve, that all women don't deserve, and you need to prove yourself and you need to act like a man to be good and wherever, definitely you will feel that you are an imposter. While when you change the belief and you start asking them, good enough compared to whom? Imposter compared to whom? So sometimes we would put standards for ourselves that are totally unrealistic, and nobody expects this from us. We are shooting ourselves in the foot by raising our expectation, assuming that we need to be perfect to be worth it.
You're spot
So
on.
I basically change the belief and I challenge it by asking them, compared to whom? Says who? You have to be, says who?
Yes. Yes, having that constant questioning. And I've often described myself as civilly disobedient because I am a polite rebel. I don't go out breaking most of the laws, but being able to challenge those, especially those thoughts and beliefs that we have about ourselves.
That are not even a law.
Yes.
Says who? You have to sleep at, says who?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a fantastic approach. And of course, it helps to have a guide to move people into that. I recently, I have a process that I call the spotlight of affection, where I have the person envision the spotlight and then themselves walking into it and having them express that unconditional acceptance and love and recognize their strengths, etc., from it. And I recently used this with a woman who was really lacking confidence in using her own mind's ability to change her body with weight loss. And she had come to the point where she decided that she did deserve self-care in her 70s and after having a life of serving others. And following that experience, her words to me was, Kelly, in that moment, I felt like I was sitting in God's chair and I felt everything that he feels towards me. This was life-changing for her. It's made all the difference.
You know what also helped a lot? When I really learned about the concept of perception is projection. So when I ask you, who is your role model and what do you like about her? It has to be in you. If not, you could not be able to perceive it in the others.
Yeah.
So this is where they start seeing the resources that they have when they are reflected on others. Because if they did not have them deep inside, you cannot imagine what's not inside of you.
It's true. And that really can come across when we're having compassion for others, because most of our clients are really good about having compassion for other people. Not too many narcissists seek out hypnotherapy, right? And so being able to map that across so that they can have that own kind of patience, compassion, forgiveness, whatever they think they need. It's not our job to tell them that.
And you know what? This is also where I use past life regression. So I explained to them that you need to go through the 64 states in all different lives. So you need to go through all different religions. You need to be a male and a female and a transgender, and you need to be an animal and a plant and a human. So whatever you are now, it doesn't give you the privilege to bully anyone because you were like that or you're going to become like that.
Oh,
so
fascinating. I had not heard.
Yeah.
Wow, I have a lot to look forward to, I think.
No, so it's very interesting because you stop judging people.
Yes. And it is true. We're mirrors for each other. And so treating others as we want to be treated, treating ourselves as we want to treat others
Yeah.
is a great golden rule. So another thing that you have some background is in using hypnotic and NLP processes in a first responder in emergency situations. Tell me about that.
Well, I learned that sometimes, for example, during big explosions, so people are in severe pain, and either they are waiting for an ambulance, or even if they are in a state where they cannot handle anesthesia. So just like you do when you are delivering a baby. So it's I took hypnobirth as well. So you can shut off the pain area in the brain with hypnotherapy. So they don't feel the pain until they get the proper medical care. So it's not for always. Just like you do with a tooth pain. So you shut off the pain area until the paramedics are there.
Okay. And we know that, and I have done some emergency hypnosis trainings and even done some workshops with fire departments so that they can learn more about the power of not just the words, but their nonverbal communication, because it can make all the difference in
Yes.
those scenes as far as the resilience of the patient. So
Well, my dream, sorry, I'm cutting you off. My dream now is to invade the medical field and just tell the doctors, please don't ask the patient, how is the pain now? Because they need to get the pain out to feel how is it now. What if you ask them to what extent you feel better today? So it's the exact same question, but you reframe it differently.
yes. Yeah, and Michael Elner did a lot of work in that area. One of the first books that he wrote was called Bedside Manners, and it was written for physicians. So
Yeah.
he and Alan Barsky spent a lot of time actually presenting at Pain Week, which is a big annual conference of medical professionals, and those two were the only hypnotherapists, non-licensed people that were consistently presenting there. So
Mhm.
words are important. And sometimes I think someone called me once the reframe queen because I'm able to reframe
Yeah,
things.
exactly.
And this is a skill set that we teach our clients to let them develop that ability to find the meaning, to find the helpful meaning. And I really prefer using helpful and unhelpful over good, bad, positive,
Yeah.
negative. Has a little bit less judgment to it, right? What is helping me now? And also going back to our values, when you know what your values are, what those principles that you hold closest in your heart are, then you can ask yourself, is this choice I'm making congruent with it?
Yeah.
Is it bringing this into my life, or is it keeping me from having it? And this is crucial, especially when we're talking about habit changes. But of course, thinking and emotions are habitual too. And
Yes.
we can teach those skill sets, the NLP techniques, and we can also create those spontaneous shifts in a setting.
Just like when you talk about smoking, so the client would call it addiction. And when they are an addict, they would assume that they are an addict for life. Well, it's a habit. So the more you train them to consider it as a habit, it becomes easier to get rid of the habit than an addiction.
It does, it helps move that limiting belief that they're stuck with it forever.
You loosen the grip on the problem.
Yes, that's what it is. We're grip looseners.
Yeah.
We're making people. Have you ever noticed? And I studied martial arts for 15 years, and there was such a correlation between body stiffness and mental stiffness. And I found that the people who were more flexible, who were more in tune with their body, were much more mentally and emotionally resilient. And so
Again, it's the flexibility that's reflecting on your body.
yes, and you probably feel more comfortable too when you're more flexible, right? So being flexible, being able to flex and pivot, the whole world went through the pandemic, and that impacted our field a lot. Many people ended up closing their physical offices because of
Yeah.
shutdowns. And some people were super busy. I was swamped with clients during that time because people had more time. They also had some excess funds coming in from government giveaways here. So
And there was a lot of fear emerging on the surface.
lots of fear. It was a global fear being promoted, and that anxiety is still palpable. And I work a lot with
Yeah.
young people. They were severely impacted by that. How do you get new clients? You're obviously you've been going through, regionally such a difficult time, and there's been devaluation of your currency there. How have you been able to procure those clients?
Well, actually, so far it has been word of mouth.
Mhm.
But now that I'm graduating trainers as well, I'm starting to be more visible in the Middle East. So that because I'm the only master trainer for the American board. So we need more training clients so that my graduates can also have clients.
Yes.
So this is why now I'm starting to be usually in my posts I'm rather impulsive. So I think of something, I write it, I don't plan beforehand. So now I need to plan more often and to use more of LinkedIn because this is where my niche is because I want to target senior executives like I was with all the challenges that they might get, including health and sexuality and smoking and weight and career and whatever, because my background is in human resources as well. So now I'm starting to be more visible on the place where my niche would be. Yet I'm still working with everyone else because I like to use lots of examples in my classes and I do not like to repeat the same examples because I get bored. So, so I need to see people in all areas, but whenever I have a case that I already worked with something similar, I would refer it to one of my graduates. So the marketing plan this year, I'm starting it. So I'm more into one-on-one interactions because knowing from my own experience, at least, I'm more into one-on-one connection. So I have like 8,000 people on my LinkedIn. So I would start there by engaging personal conversations with them because I want to create executive NLP. So it's for senior executives. It's not for them to become coaches or therapists. It's for them to use it in their work. So I want to engage in conversations with them.
Right. And that's a
And
wonderful market, and one that will radiate out too.
yeah,
I think at a certain point in our careers, many of us want to be able to affect a broader span,
the ripple effect.
right? But you said something really interesting. Even as you're cultivating this niche, you're still doing the general work.
Yes.
And I've done the same thing because I don't want to isolate myself off into just one or two
Yes.
particular areas. I love having the variety, and our clients teach us so much. So, it still happens even after 22 years that I will have a client present with something I've never worked with before. And
Yeah.
to me, that's part of that lifelong learner that
Yep.
that I want to help that person solve that problem, that issue. So you've given me so much great information about how you do be, how you do be. Is there anything else that you want to share before we conclude?
Okay. I just want to tell you one thing. I never planned to do it this way. It was like, because we never knew where we were going to get 5 years ago. So it was survival one day at a time. You do the best you can with what you have. And when you know better, you do better. Knowing that with every problem, there is the solution embedded in it. So you look for the solution and eventually you're going to find it. So every time it was like a very big wave, but instead of killing me, it was pushing me forward, which was not planned. So I will not claim that, yeah, I planned, or I did not plan anything. I was only using all the tools that I have to survive and help others around me survive.
But you paid attention.
Yeah.
And so
It's awareness. Awareness is the key for everything.
yes.
Whatever you feel, whatever you do, whatever you sense, whatever is happening around you.
And yet there's a deeper thing too, and there is that trust that you've built in yourself and in your life.
Yeah.
And we really know that can make the difference when push comes to shove, to keeping us afloat, help, supporting us when those waves get really big. And of course, having a community. And I know that going through some of the losses that I have had, my work has been one of the best resources.
Absolutely. It's the best addiction that can release any pain.
Yeah,
And
let's
it's a
call it
very resourceful addiction. It's
our
amazing.
hypnosis NLP addiction. I love it. It's one that I embrace. Well, it's been so wonderful to see you. And
Thank you so much, Kelly.
I'll be sharing this within our group, and I'm sure you'll get lots of great feedback. And how can people get in touch with you if they're interested in taking one of your courses or working one-on-one with you? What's the best?
I can share my website or my email or
Yeah,
on Facebook.
yeah. What's your website?
Askcoachb.com. .me, sorry.
Ask Coach B.
BWE. .me.
.me.
Yep.
I'll post it up there at the video description too. So,
Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure reconnecting with you.
all right, stay safe and stay
Thank
beautiful.
you.
You're doing a wonderful thing.
Thank you. Much love to all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.